Greetings, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Which Ship. This one, of course, is brought to you by Lightning Dragon, his idea, of course, his brainchild. And today we are going to be comparing the three greatest ships in Star Citizen that players can currently pledge for. And we're looking at the Idris series, the Polaris, and, of course, the Javelin. And
woo, Javelin hype, baby!
And we're going to be going ahead and discussing what we feel the advantages of these ships are. If we're looking at them not from a pledge perspective, not from you paying physical cash, but from like if you were playing the game and you had in-game currency, which one of these should you save it for and why? Because we don't want to base anything like this based upon what the ships, at least of this value, this much cost.
Yeah, I mean, if I had a choice between owning a Javelin and buying a brand new computer, wow, I'd probably pick the computer because I can do other things with the computer. With the Javelin is just a really kick-ass ship that I could eventually earn, and I am also not made of money either. So we want to stress that it's not about actually pledging for these. It's about what you can do with these kind of ships and with the information we have currently.
Yeah, and as a full disclosure, I am a Polaris owner, so there is a little bit of bias on my end when it comes to that.
Big flashing text on the screen, bias.
But for me, that's really the ideal. That's as large of a ship as I want, but that's my comfort zone. So let's start with that. Let's start with the one that to get my biases out of the way.
It's also the cheapest one.
That's true. And I got it, and when it came out, I got it on discount. It was one of those early models that came out. You got
early,
the email.
The first 100 or something.
Yeah, exactly. Should have a special number on it and everything. So I'm happy with that. But for me, like when the Polaris is basically to a degree what the Idris used to be. The Idris has, of course, gained a lot of size. It's gained a lot of mass.
It's put on a lot of weight over the years. Don't mock her. She's still a beautiful lady.
But the thing is that for me, I kept thinking, man, I just want a capital ship that carries like one ship and is nimble and fast compared to other. And then boom, and the Polaris comes out, and I'm like, I'm trying to rip the credit card out of my wallet. I'm like, oh yeah,
you call up your bank. You're like, how much money do I have?
Oh my gosh, I was all over that, dude.
Doing the math.
I was at work when that came out, and I'm like standing in a corner trying to buy this thing on my phone.
On the phone, and like,
oh my god,
can you look this up for me? Because I only got this phone. Yeah, no problem. I'll look this up, and it was a good day.
Yeah, I was like all over that. I was like, oh my gosh. So for me, a couple considerations when it comes to something like the Polaris is that one of the reasons I do like it is that it does require less crew, and that's a factor. I tend to run with smaller guilds, and quite intentionally, I like to keep.
You want things nice and personal.
Yeah, well, to a degree, but like don't get me wrong. I think the large guilds are fun. I mean, a test squadron and things like that. But I think you can get kind of lost in a crowd for a guild that large. And for me, I'd rather get to know the people that I'm in a guild with. Kind of make some connections, make some friendships, work together. And I feel that when you're a large guild, like there's something that's at tens of thousands of people, you're
a cog in the machine.
Yeah, you're a cog in the machine, and I don't want that.
And that's kind of what Eve was like. I mean, when you start getting to those big things, it's like, okay, well, today we want everyone who can fly a battleship to just kit it out. It doesn't matter what your kit is, and we're going to fly to this sector, and we're going to have this big war. And basically, it was just clicking on icons and hoping that you didn't die. That's really what it was. It was basically smashing your heads together. Your focus targeting. Shoot this target. Okay, everybody shoot this target. And you were basically just a DPS. You were basically a gun for the guy who was at the helm.
I said that. So for someone like me who doesn't really want to tie into something that large, and I'd rather deal with a guild maybe with this few dozen or even it's just 100 or so people. This is great. And of course, you can fill in those remaining gaps with NPCs. Now, if you do have to take this ship out with a heavy NPC crew, the expenses are going to be lower than some of the other capital options. So, one of the other thing I love about the ship, some people didn't like it, but they're like, "Oh man, I can't believe that bridge is right in the front, like it is." But to me, it's like from a piloting perspective, that's right in the front, right in the center. You really have a good handlehold on exactly where your ship is.
And it's a small enough ship that you'd still kind of want that. You'd still have that first order kind of control. I mean, maybe there's a captain behind you who's, looking at the radar and saying, okay, well, we want to go here. But I mean, he's just kind of like directing you, like, we want to go here. Or maybe you're the captain and you just want to fly the ship, like Jarvis here. Just because he owns.
Nobody is flying my Polaris
except for him. Yeah. Maybe me if I'm nice.
That's true.
If I'm a good boy, I'll be able to pilot it.
It's like bathroom break. You get
okay, I need to use the bathroom. You're gonna take over. You slave the controls over to the second screen. I do a wiping animation, like a slide animation.
But don't bring up the word wiping animation at the same time I talk about going to the bathroom. Anyways,
editing, flash editing. I didn't say anything. I'm thinking of a slide animation, like on like your smartphone or tablets or whatever. I'm gonna go to the next app over here. I'm gonna slave the drive controls to the second seat.
That's not a star wipe. I'll tell you that. All right, so the thing is that also as well, I wanted a ship that could have functionality with the one ship inside of it that would coordinate really well, have repair, refuel facilities. It's got it. I mean, this ship, if you're looking at where I feel that a lot of the flexibility of function comes in on the Polaris is what you do with your hangar. Like for me, I really think
you could put a Hornet Ghost in and have a stealth recon / fighter
terrapin.
Terrapin in there for basically just casting a wide net, trying to figure out where you're going. It could be looking for ore, it could be looking for pirates, it could be looking for anything.
And this is where it gets really awesome, because the fact is that the turrets that are on the ship basically are rigged in such a way that they deal with fighters. So you've got a good anti-fighter screen in there. You've got the largest scale shields you can get before going capital, and the lightest scale capital armor. The fighters aren't going to have a real trouble dealing with this. Its guns cover
the firepower.
Oh yeah, but here's the thing is, as well as that, it also carries all those torpedoes. So talking about having the terrapin or having the Hornet out there scouting for you, whatever, is that we're dealing with beyond visual range combat. This ship is probably one of the scariest concepts out there, because if you get someone out there, if the size 10 torpedoes can fire from hundreds upon hundreds of kilometers away, and you get someone out there scouting, you could be a real night. Yeah.
If you spotted an Idris and you're like, okay, that's a pirate Idris. I don't know if they're going to be pirate Idrises, but let's say it is for the sake of argument. And you have your Terrapin or your Hornet Ghost out there, equipped for sensors or whatever. Or not the Hornet Ghost, but there's also the Hornet Tracker, which is going to have a sensor suite in there. And you get a target lock. You can be like, all right, so here's the firing solution. You punch it in or whatever, and you'd be like, boom, fire torpedo tube 1, whoosh, fire torpedo tube 2, whoosh, submarine sound effects because awesomeness, and then you're done. What you can do then is you can either wait and see the results of it, or you can be like, fuck this, we're getting out of here, and the ship is fast and maneuverable enough to do that. So before they even detect you, they got torpedoes coming in. So
exactly, and you're gone.
Yeah, they may know the direction that they came from, but you're way outside their visual range and their sensor range, so you'll be gone before those torpedoes even get in range. So they'll be on high alert. And
that's the thing too. It's going to be the fastest of these three options as far as capital ships go. So it is in control of it if it's engaging or not. You can get away from it. I guarantee you the ship's going to be able to get away from an Idris or a Javelin, and if it wants to, and they're not going to be able to catch it. It's one of those things that...
The thing is, though, if you run into the combat variant of the Idris or the Javelin, they're going to have...
Railgun? Yeah.
They're going to have railguns. And so if you're in a straight line and they're firing, you're probably going to die.
Well, then just don't do the straight line thing.
Yeah, don't do straight lines.
Go lazily to the left. You'll be okay.
One of the things they talk about is, I believe this was pulled off of the brochure, I guess. I don't know if they actually had a brochure, but basically there's the in-lore reason the Polaris was developed, and it was made post the Vanduul attack on Vega, and it was built as a multi-role ship for like naval patrol, flagship for small militia, and it was made to be versatile, and that's kind of where you see where it's got anti-fighter weaponry and then like large-scale capital torpedoes, so it can kind of do both roles.
I can check the manual. It's sitting right behind me on my shelf.
I have it copy pasted in my notes.
I have the physical thing. That was my job.
No, no more reading.
All right,
I have
no
this
reading.
huge thing of notes that I took place. I spent a couple hours just staring at the ships, and like an hour or two writing all this stuff. But I'm not going to attempt to try and read my own stuff. While it's perfectly grammar efficient and spelled right, I see words and I start reading them, and then I just start skipping words, and then I'm like, what the fuck am I talking about? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
so I have to stop and reread. So I have my notes up, but I'm only using them sparingly because if I just start reading from them, I'm not gonna.
It's over.
Yeah.
So yeah, overall, I said for me, my personal choice with not having a large guild to back me up, and just looking at cost efficiency and the speed, the variety, the fact that you can deal with fighters as well as it's a terror to capital ships. For me, it's the Polaris, and that's my personal thoughts on it. It's always going to win in this conversation for me. So I'll let Lightning go ahead and tell us why he likes the Idris.
Well, it's not that I like the Idris. The thing with the Idris is, for me, when they were first talking about it, it's like, man, this sounds great. You can have up to 3 fighters and stuff. Now, they were small fighters at the time, but you could have that versatility. And we didn't have the Polaris at that time, so it's like this was the ship.
Yeah,
but it's like, it's too expensive. I mean, it's something to look forward to. And then they bumped up the size, and I don't think they've updated the ship spec page for the size bump. I mean, the size is in there. It's I have it written down somewhere, but it's like a 200.
Well, they have 238.5 meters.
Yeah, there you go. You have the actual page in front of you. I just have a bunch of freaking I have a wall of text here. But they haven't really updated like how many ships it can carry. I mean, I searched for a while to try and find this. So, I mean, are we going to be able to put retaliators in there? Because they talked about retaliators in like these, massive, hangars in the
I don't know, because when you watch the original Squadron 42 presentation that they did,
that's a big fucking hangar.
Those ceilings are pretty tall.
Yeah, I mean, we might be able to base our bombers out of this, and like full-scale bombers, like retaliators, which ironically were actually designed to be planetary bombers, so they're extremely long-range. They do not have to be carrier-based. But if they are carrier-based, their strike range is just insane, and that's one of the things. If you can get larger ships in there, what's the Redeemer, freaking Retaliator. I mean, if you can get those bigger ships in there, you're a much bigger threat. What?
Vanguards, things like that.
Oh yeah, Vanguards. You can get these heavy fighters and these medium bombers and stuff in there. You're going to be massively more threatening than the Polaris. But the biggest difference here is your crew requirements are going to skyrocket, because you have to have mechanics, you have to have loading, you have to have an actual flight crew, and that's not just a pilot. I mean, for every one pilot, there's like 5 to 10 guys that are supporting him in his ship. So that's kind of the biggest downside. But it also offers huge versatility and just the flight deck option. And
well, for me,
pause here for a second.
When I look at it, the thing is that when I'm looking at like the Idris, the thing is that for me, where it gets more difficult to man the ship up, like with Polaris, you've got like just let's look at pilots. You got the guy flying it, and you got the guy flying whatever ship, the fighter in there.
Yeah, but like 2 pilots.
Right, but the Idris, you could have a plethora of pilots in there, and the real threat on the Idris, I feel, while it does have really good firepower, is what you're carrying inside of it. Those fighters are the heart and soul of what's, I feel, going to be what the Idris brings to the table, what you're putting in there. That's where the Polaris' heart and soul is basically like, the anti-ship guns and then lots of torpedoes.
Yeah, the Polaris ship on its own is that's the platform you're going to base everything off of. And then you get a little bonus with the hangar base. So you can kind of extend your ability. Like, do you want scouting? Do you want radar? I mean, do you want extra combat, like with a Super Hornet or something in there? And the
Idris is like this deep space, almost in a sense, like way station, because it's going to have the supplies, the resources, and the capabilities to stay out in deep space longer than anybody, as far as being a fighter platform. It's really, to me, it was debatable. If the price on the Idris had been lower when it came out, I probably would have snagged one, to be honest with you. The reason I snagged the Polaris was because the price, it wasn't, not only was it half the cost, but it was on sale when it came out for that initial run. So I was like, oh, heck yes. But, if the Idris, when they came out, say the Idris was, instead of the $1,500 when it came out, say it was $700, I probably would have snagged it. I probably would have. I bet you they would have sold a lot more Idrises if they had done that instead.
I don't fully agree with their price points. That's why we're not trying to bring it up too much, because you look at the price of these big ships, and while they're big ships and they're going to be with you for possibly your entire career, your entire game time.
Oh, these are end game ships for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, I mean, me personally, I want to see how large ship combat goes. I mean, I might not want anything bigger than an Idris. Maybe I don't want the Idris, but I want a ship of that size. It's maybe a bit more of a battleship kind of mindset,
right?
Like a gunship sort of, as opposed to a fighter or a carrier. Because as you were saying, it's really about what you pick with you. So you customize what your role is by the ships you carry with you. And now it still does have some impressive armament. It's got 7 turrets, but there's an interesting thing, because the size 6 or class 6 or whatever, I think they're class, is the old system as opposed to the new system. So you have one of those turrets, which the only information is it's a capital class turret, and then you have like 5 of the just manned turrets. Now they both have the size 5 guns, but it's like, are we going to look at, there's an actual capital ship grade weapon, so it's size 5, but that's like the smallest of the capital ones, and it just shares that number with the standard guns. I mean, is there going to be a hard cap on these things? So that turret might be another anti-capital ship thing, but maybe more like, mid to close range, where your railgun, if you have the Idris M, is your big heavy hitting weapon, as opposed to, or in tandem with any bombers you have in here.
Now, this is just a general thought, but because some of these systems aren't in the game yet.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something like sensors, I could see the Idris having superior sensors to even something like the Polaris, because if you think of it as a carrier platform, it's got to be able to keep track of what fighters are doing and everything.
If you look at the 3D model on the back, they have that huge sensor array.
Yeah, that thing's gonna be hard to sneak up on anyway. I mean, that thing should have a very, very strong sensor package. Because here's the thing. It's big. It's not going to be stealthy. They might as well go loud. I mean, you might as well go loud.
Go loud and go proud.
Yeah, well, you just go out there and ping the hell out of the universe, because, you're not invisible and everything else is pretty much to you. So you might as well just go ahead. And so, I mean, I see this ship having a very nice kind of a wide sweeping detection ability. I think as far as system patrol craft, I think this could still do it very, very well. In fact, I think it'd be a hell of a threat. If you see an Idris coming in, towards you, and you're a pirate faction, don't be pirates. I would take
this. There's a gamer channel. Do not condone piracy.
Exactly. or we'll chop your hands off. No, no. So the thing is that you see something like that coming in. If you're running, say, a player pirate base, that's gonna be a scary sight. I think if the fighters working close to an Idris, having the Idris's guns fighting along, very similar to like the Kickstarter pitch where you saw the fighters going around the Bengal. That's a lot of firepower to deal with. That is a lot of firepower to deal with at close range. And I think in a swarm, you treat that ship like a swarm.
It's like a beehive.
Keep things close to within range. For support, that ship would just be an absolute nightmare to deal with. An absolute nightmare. But I think even to a degree, just as equal, if not scarier, of a nightmare is going to be, of course, the big boy in the lot, the one that costs ridiculous amount, $500
with no guns.
With no guns. No guns. Who sells a destroyer with no guns?
No guns and no modules. The thing is, buying the Javelin in lore, you are actually literally buying it from the UE. This is an old ship that's like, okay, it's reached its service life. We're gonna break it down. We're gonna keep the hull because the hull's still good. I mean, we're not gonna get rid of it, but we can't store this. We got other things that are more important, so they're selling these things off. So you are getting a military ship that has just been basically mothballed. They've taken the guns off and things like that. So that's what you're buying. Now, this is kind of the ship I want. Me personally, I would like to be able to fly this, depending on if large scale combat is good. If large scale combat is garbage, I'm going to be Retaliator for life, baby. But the thing with the Javelin is it's got its own hangar. They've expanded on it, and they've said, okay, well, before, I think it's like, you can put like a Hornet in there. That's what they said. You can have like a Hornet in there, but now they've bumped it up. You can have like a Redeemer or a Vanguard in there, so you can get like one medium size. You get a medium size ship and then maybe like one fighter. So you're talking about a pretty significant hangar size. What you're looking at is most likely what the Idris's original hangar loadout was going to be.
Yeah.
On a larger platform. Now, another thing is the Javelin is a 100% modular ship. It's got modular bays and it's got modular rooms. So what you can do with it, depending on what these modules they release, is pretty much anything. I mean, maybe there's sensor modules you can put in there, and you can just jam pack it with sensors. So basically, you warp into a solar system. You know where everything is. Maybe you don't know in great detail, but you're like, all right, we know there's an asteroid cluster over here. We know there's a moon over here. There's a planet over here. You could have everything detected. Or my hope is some of these bays can be swapped out.
So you're saying in the sense
guns.
that for a really dedicated team, this ship might be good for exploration because you could actually swap out to have a lot of supplies and extra fuel.
Yeah,
and you could really take this. You could use this ship
super
maybe
modular.
as an explorer. Yeah, obviously not taking these small jump points anytime soon, but
no,
that's why you bring that's why I think maybe you bring something smaller, like once again like a Terrapin, to go ahead and scout out those small things that you're looking at or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that. I am really, to be honest with you, until you mentioned it now, I hadn't really considered it as an exploration platform. Like we've got
Carrack.
Well, it's a Carrack, yeah, but I was thinking of we have that science ship. I don't know why I can never remember the name of this.
The Endeavor.
The Endeavor, okay.
I don't know why I remember it.
Anyway, so that you have the Endeavor, which is this dedicated science platform, which is kind of a capital ship to some degree at its own.
It's big enough to be classified in a capital ship, but because it's not a combat ship,
but it's a modular ship. It's a
Yeah.
modular ship, and you look at if you look at the Javelin, which real strength I think is going to be, as you're mentioning, is its modular nature, because there may only be limited types of modules that come out when the game's first launched, but given enough time. They're going to be adding. I guarantee you, they're going to be adding new features and functionality.
Well, just think about this. They've been talking about modular rooms in the PU for PU. I always say PU. In the persistent universe, there's modular rooms, so like bedrooms, bathrooms, desks, or whatever. And so that same system could be used for the larger rooms in your Javelin and your capital ships.
I mean, they could go hog wild on if it's a deep enough modular system. I mean, this thing, going back once again to EVE Online. My brother had this ship that was kind of a big cargo ship. We just took it out for mining.
The Orca?
No, it was something different. It was kind of a longer, flatter kind of thing. Anyway,
Sounds like an Orca to me.
Oh, maybe it wasn't Orca. I don't know.
It didn't have any actual hard points for guns, but it had drones and it had buffs, and it could buff up everybody else that was mining. It was kind of a
okay. That sounds right then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, you set up a Javelin like that for mining operations, and you turn those if they're like modular, like I don't know, refining sections. I mean, gosh, I don't know. The possibilities though, if it's modular, are really endless. It really comes down to what CIG comes up with.
So let's see. It has 12 modular component bays, so maybe things like fuel tanks, reactors, shield generators, and 6 modular rooms. So you could have like mass crew. You could have it maybe running with a smaller crew. So you have like really posh crew quarters.
Yeah, cargo.
Cargo. You could deck this thing out for cargo. It's already got. Actually, I don't know if they have any cargo thing on there.
Well, right now, as far as
the 5,400 cargo units.
As it stands right now, and that's based on whatever its default is, or that's not bad.
More in there.
Yeah, it's really solid. So man, as I said, I hadn't really considered it much until you started mentioning the modular stuff. So now I'm thinking about it. It's like
I mean, that's kind of I look at it. And I say, this is the ship I want to work towards. Mm-hmm. But the downside of this ship, and I hope you can do this with the modular components, as I was trying to say earlier, is it only has capital ship guns. It has like 7 capital ship class guns.
Oh yeah,
and that's it. They are capital ship guns, and it has 2 rail guns in the nose, so it's got huge firepower, but only for ships of the same size. So if you get a bunch of bombers coming in on you, odds are those capital ship weapons, maybe they don't have the good turning or something, but they'll have like really good punch. So if you have fast maneuverable ships that are dropping torpedoes and missiles at you, you've got heavy duty shields, heavy duty armor and stuff. But eventually you'll fall under a dedicated attack. So some of the modules I would like to see is some anti-fighter stuff. Though I believe it does have 2 anti-missile systems installed, so it'll have some natural defense right away. But yeah, 2 size 7. It says they're turrets, but I'm pretty sure those are the railguns. If it has 2 size 7 turrets that are railguns and a turret and not a fixed mount, that'll be just even nastier because you'd be able to broadside with that.
Yeah, the only concern I have with it is the amount of crew that you have to take the thing of it, and that's where it hangs up for me. As much as I like the things that are in there,
this is saying about 23 for your minimum crew. But again, the Javelin is farther along than the Polaris, but I'm pretty sure it's not as far along as, like, say, the Idris. The Idris has a very specific number of crew. It's between this amount and this amount, which is between 37 and like 60 or something.
We've seen, we've almost seen, we've seen a good chunk of the Javelin now because that's what they showed on the 2.0 planets, right? And oh my gosh, I couldn't believe the scale of that. The engines and stuff. Oh my gosh, you live in the engines.
The engines are bigger than the Connie.
I know, it's ridiculous, but I love it. But it was like, oh, here's the first time we get to see it, and it's destroyed. But still, it was nice to see the scale
because all the external pieces are all done and modeled, and it was easier just to make them look destroyed because of the PBR system they have. Then model, do all the internals. We did get to see the cockpit, how it sits above and over. I really like that. It gives you a lot of visibility, and honestly, for a big capital ship, you don't really need to be in the front.
Yeah. Well, looking at the what was that? Where they showed the engines on that thing, I said they look very similar to some degree. Like, I know it's a different manufacturer, but it looked very similar to the layout that the Polaris has on there as well.
Yeah, both the Javelin and the Idris are made by Aegis. Mm-hmm. Here's a quick note here. We'll go slightly off topic, then you can get back to where you are. To me, it looks like the Javelin and the Idris are very like old school, like World War II style things. They're designed for this purpose. This is what they do. It's what they're good at. Where the Polaris is, it's more of like a modern day like cruiser or frigate or something, where it can do pretty much everything. So it's not going to do it like as well as the things that were like focused and specifically made for these things. But the fact is, it's going to be far more versatile. It can be cheaper to get into, so that's another thing to consider. But how well it can scale in either direction is going to be really limited by the standard issues.
If you've got the fleet to support it, and you've got a cargo fleet, you guys are doing shipping runs, and because with the cargo in there,
could you imagine a Javelin with nothing but cargo modules installed?
Get what I'm saying? Like, imagine a shipping fleet or shipping guild running Javelins as their transports.
Javelins and probably some Hull series ships.
Or some fighter escorts in there just to cover the bases. But it's pretty scary as hell.
If you're just flying around in whatever ship, your Connie or whatever, and then just all these ships warp in. It's Javelin, it's Hull seas, some Vanguards, maybe some Retaliators. That's gonna be like, oh shit! I don't want anything to do with that. No one's gonna fuck with you if you're transporting cargo in a destroyer. And that's something you could do. Maybe it's not going to be as efficient. You're definitely going to want those Hull class ships.
But it's guaranteed money every time.
Oh yeah, you're gonna make it to your destination. No one's going to mess with you. Some fighters attacked us. Send out the drones. Fighter escorts and.
So to me then, looking at what we talked about, I'd have to honestly say that I'm so biased towards the Polaris for obvious reasons.
Of course, you also own one.
But if I had to choose between the remaining two for myself, looking at the modular capabilities, I would choose the Javelin.
And that's really what makes or break the ship. If it comes down to it where, you have like 3 different modules, then whoopity-doo. It's still going to be a big ship, but its role will be to fight other big ships. But if they go hog wild with this, you have sensor roles, fuel, nodes, not no modulars. You can have extra fuel, extra cargo, maybe more in-depth sensor rooms, computer rooms, to help beef up your turrets if you have AI turrets, like more crew quarters. Maybe one of them you can pull out 2 of them and have another small hangar. You could put like another fighter, like a 300 series or the Gladius. I mean, depending on how far they go with this modular system, this might be one of the most versatile ships in the game.
That's true.
And plus, it's a capital ship. I just don't want to see what happens when you pull.
See, you need
fill that baby up.
You need to be a salesman, because I think you've convinced me a little bit here that after I get my money built up flying around with a Polaris, that might actually be a goal.
We're gonna double down. You and I. This is gonna be our goal. We're gonna be running transports day and night, and we're gonna get ourselves a Javelin.
You tell you what, you get a Javelin, and I will escort you with my Polaris.
That sounds like a badass opportunity. Let's do that.
That sounds absolutely perfect, actually. You get the long-range sensors on it, because it's a big ship anyway. You find them, then I'll go ahead and I'll just beyond visual range torpedoing, and then we're good. We're set. So, all right, guys. Well, that was our comparison of the 3 ships, and I think we kind of settled on possibly the Javelin being the best
also,
around.
It's going to be the most expensive ship, not
true.
Just to purchase, but to maintain. So there's that other factor too. I mean,
That's true.
Is it going to make enough money to support it, or is it going to be one of those things where like, all right, it's Sunday, bring out the Javelin?
There are a lot of factors. There are a lot of factors to consider on a ship. These ships, and even the Polaris, and that really, I mean, it's your support network is going to be a huge factor in this.
It might be one of those things where you spend the entire week.
If you're in a 10-person guild,
and ammo and money, so you can take out your capital ship.
Yeah,
we don't know. Yeah. I hope that they make it relatively fairly balanced, because if they don't go the way of Eve, what you're gonna have is you're just gonna have a bunch of people flying Connies and Starfarers and Freelancers and Retaliators, and that's gonna be the entire game. And that's boring. There's so much depth, and there's all these massive ships they're making. I mean, they have the entire Van Duel Armada, all these huge monstrous ships. And while I personally don't want a 3 to 4 kilometer ship, that's a bit too big for me. To just throw away capital ship gameplay as, it's multi-crew only, because let's be honest, this isn't Eve. We're not going to have 10,000 or 100,000 or 1 million people playing this game. So we need to have these capital ship gameplays be viable for even if you're just a one-man team. Yeah,
definitely. That's gonna be a tricky thing for them to pull off. I mean, that's kind of a balance, and you have to see how effective these NPC crews are going to be. How well they do their job, the expense. It might come down to it that you maybe never want to go anything larger than a Connie, just because of how expensive things could actually be.
Yeah, and if that's the case, that's gonna be real sad. I mean, I'm still gonna play the game because as long as they fix IM mode, I'm still gonna play the game because I like where it's going. But basically, just sectioning off a whole 90% of your gameplay because you have to have this with other players. That's just sad and disappointing. And I truly believe and I hope that Chris will kind of realize, we can't just lock gameplay out because you don't have 20 friends to play the ship. And I believe he's leaning that way because he stated that, you can still solo the Idris, but you'll want to bring your friends just because of the nature of the ship.
Yeah, well, here's hoping. So, I think it was a good discussion. I think, as I said, I didn't even really consider the Javelin before, and I'm going to be taking some time looking at it now because, while I already own a Polaris, that might be a good goal for me to eventually work towards. I don't want to spend the money in real life, but I'll be happy to go ahead and...
Like I said, I'd prefer to buy a new computer than buy the Javelin.
Yeah, so, I mean, I might use my in-game Polaris earning money to work my way towards the Javelin now. So
and I've got my Orion mining chip. I can mine rocks and...
We'll just coordinate. We'll just pitch our money together. We'll get you a Javelin, and I don't care about the money. I have enough ships, so I'm not worried about that.
It's my turn.
It's your turn. So,
anyway,
all right, guys.
Yeah, that's the end.
That's the end. Thanks for listening. That was a very, very sloppy end. But anyway, thanks for listening.
I started, and then you started.
That's true. We ruined it. All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Forever. Go
Stop
home now.
Stop it.
No, we're done. Bye.
Bye.